We begin with breaking news with thousands mobilizing at this hour, taking to the streets once again to demand action from Congress on reforming gun laws. This is Parkland, Florida today, where the March for Our Lives movement was founded, in fact, 4 years ago, by student survivors of that massacre at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Well, today, outraged by the Robb Elementary School shooting in Uvalde, students are marching for our lives again. Large groups are expected to gather in San Antonio, Chicago, Nashville, New York, Washington, D.C., and Austin, Texas. So we begin with two reports on the March for Our Lives. Savannah Sellers is joining us from D.C., Stephanie Stanton standing by in Parkland, Florida for us. Ladies, welcome to you both. First to you, Savannah. The rally there is just getting underway. So what are you hearing from the activists and those protesters there?
Yes. Hey, Alex. Good to be with you today. So as you can see, it's really starting to fill up here. We are on the Mall in Washington, D.C., as you said, which is where that first March for Our Lives event was back in 2018, organized by the survivors of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. As you just mentioned, they're hoping for tens of thousands of people here today. Of course, it's raining a little bit, which has had a little bit of an impact on the turnout so far, but it's really starting to fill up here. We're just about to start beginning to hear from speakers over the next few hours. Protesters here are telling me they are looking for those things that we've been talking about all week, of course, on MSNBC. Universal background checks, raising that minimum age from 18 to 21. You're going to see people out here all day with signs that say just that. Things like "your kid could be next" was one of the signs I saw this morning by a man wearing a shirt with red paint all over it. People who are here are fired up. And I actually want to introduce you right now to a survivor of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. This is Sam Fuentes, who you probably remember. If you're watching at home, you may remember her. Sam and I met just in the days right after the Parkland shooting. Her and her classmates who survived that shooting. She was in a classroom where she lost multiple friends, multiple classmates. Sam was part of that rally back in 2018. Sam, I just wonder, what's it like for you to be back here today? In 2018, you were on that stage. You're here today, 4 years later. What's it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bittersweet knowing that the reason that we're here today is because there's more bodies that have been lowered into the ground. You know, the rate of gun violence is only climbing. The rate of homicide, the rate of suicide, the rate of mass shootings has only been climbing in the last 2 years. You know, we're here to emphasize the importance of real, common sense legislation. Tell the people in Congress and Senate that we need these things passed in order to reduce the amount of bodies that we are losing every single year to everyday gun violence.
Sam, I wonder also what it's like for you, given what you went through, being in one of those classrooms on February 14th, 2018. What is it like when you wake up to what happened in Uvalde?
It's traumatizing and it's triggering every single time. The conversation of gun violence is personal to me. I was shot with an AR-15 when I was 18 years old. And so when I know that there are people across the nation every single day dying to the impacts of gun violence, it makes me so disgusted and angry that even 4 years later and probably 4 years from now we'll be fighting for the same cause. But that just means that we have to keep showing up. We need to keep supporting and keep advocating.
When we were just talking a few moments ago, you mentioned the nightmares that you'll wake up with after something like that. Not only having been in that classroom, but as you said, actually having suffered from a gunshot wound. What has your recovery been like over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, I had to have multiple surgeries on my legs. I had facial surgery as well to reconstruct the scars. I don't have the same stamina in my legs. I can't walk or move the same as I used to. And I do have the potential for medical issues in the future that I will have to supervise for the rest of my life, on top of the fact that I have, PTSD, depression, anxiety. These are all things that I have to suffer with. And when these mass shootings or shootings happen in general, my nightmares and flashbacks come at full force in a way that I would never want to wish on anyone. And that's why we have to understand the severity of gun violence, that it's a ripple effect. One instance of gun violence affects so many people. And that's why, we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely. I think it's also worth a reminder there that this whole movement, and as you were then, was started by kids, by high school students. We're also standing, I think, in front of something that's very meaningful to you. A protester themselves actually brought these photos of people who have died from gun violence at schools since the 60s. Right here, this is your friend, right, yes. Nicholas?
This is Nick Dworet. He was a friend of mine in high school. I had known him since freshman year. He was, shot and killed right next to me in my classroom. Instantly, he was, shot in the head with a bullet. And he had so much potential as a young man. You know, he was going to be in the Olympics. He was a phenomenal academic, a phenomenal swimmer. And these are the types of lives that we're ripping away from people every single day. And this entire gate is full of people.
It is. Sam, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that with us. And that's what this is about today, these faces that you see along here. And Alex, we'll be back with you in the next hour also.